Hi friends, welcome to Tech Education. In this video, we'll discuss in detail what exactly is OAuth, what problems it solves it, and what are the different types of workflows in OAuth we have it and the relevant grant types. Before proceeding further, let's understand some basic terminology related to OAuth. The first one is identity provider, which you call it as an IDP. It's a service which will authenticate user and share the identity information of the user with the third-party apps based on the user consent. Next one is authorization server. It ensures that only authorized application can access the specific data based on the permissions which user has granted. Resource server. This is the server that stores and manages resources such as user data. It validates access token and share the necessary information to the client or third-party application. In this, if you see here, Google is one of the identity service provider, and then it will have an authorization server and the resource server. There are a lot of identity providers. Some of the important providers which are most commonly used are like Microsoft, Google, LinkedIn, GitHub, Twitter, etc. OAuth. It's an open standard authorization protocol. It's an industry protocol for authorization. This allows third-party applications to access a user resource or data on another service, such as Google, Facebook, etc., without exposing the user login credential. Now, let's understand this in little more detail. This is a Canva application. This is not a paid promotion. For the sake of demo, I have picked up this application because these guys has integrated with multiple IDP providers. So these are the IDP providers. We can use either one of them. We don't have to create a separate username and password for Canva. Now let's log in with Google. This is authorization URL. It's an authorization URL of the Google, not the Canva application. That's one thing which you need to notice it. I would like to log in. So now it is saying that Google will share your name, email address, language, preferences, and profile picture with Canva. In case if I'm interested, I can say continue or else I can say cancel. This is what exactly the OAuth is. What problems it solves it? First one is password sharing. In our case, we are not sharing Google username and password with Canva. We are just redirected to the Google authorization server URL. So this is highly secure. Second one is granular access control. It is sharing only the basic information, that too with the user content. That means it is getting only limited access. Third one is secure. Obviously, this is because this is implemented using OAuth protocol, which is more secure. And finally, it simplifies the customer experience. As a user, I don't have to remember multiple username and passwords. I can use either one of the service providers, whatever it is integrated with the third-party application. There are different types of OAuth flows. The first one is authorization code grant. The third-party application Canva integration, whatever we saw that is nothing but authorization code grant type. This is useful when user will be able to enter username and password and give the necessary consent. User interaction will be required in this particular use case. Second one is client credentials grant. This particular workflow is useful when there is a server to server communication where user cannot enter username and password for authentication and authorization. Third one is implicit grant. This is the simpler form of authorization code grant. We will discuss this in the further slides. And the final one is resource owner password client credentials grant. Here, the user will be giving its username and password to the third-party application. The third-party application will make a request to the APIs and get the information. This is the legacy model, and this is also not secure because you're sharing username and password with the third-party application. Generally, companies will not implement this third and fourth options. Now let's jump into the workflow. The first one is authorization grant workflow. In this flow, the third-party application will redirect the user to the authorization server, example accounts.google.com, where user will enter his username and password authenticated. Once authentication is successful, the authorization server will share the authorization code to the third-party application, and the same authorization code is sent it back to the authorization server for getting the token. If you see here, the endpoints for authorization request and access token are two different things, even though it is making a request to the authorization server. Once you receive the token, the same token is used and make a request to get the data from the resource server. The resource server will authenticate this token. Of course, behind the scenes, it will make a call to the authorization server and validate the token. Once it is valid, it will return the protected resources to the client application. In our case, we are fetching the user information. Next is client credentials grant workflow. This particular workflow is implemented when there is a server to server communication. Consider a use case where you are exposing some medical healthcare information of the user to the vendors, and their third party APIs will communicate with your APIs. So since APIs are communicating with each other, user will not be able to enter the username and password. In that particular cases, this workflow will be implemented. The user or the client APIs will make a request to the authorization server by passing the client ID and client secret. This client ID and client secret is issued by the authorization server. So it will validate these two, client ID and secret, and if it is valid, it will return the access token. This access token is used and make a request to the resource server. Once this is valid, I mean to say the tokens are valid, it will send the requested data back to the client. The first and the second one is most commonly used. And now the third one is resource owner password flow. In this, for the third party applications, you will enter your username and password, and you will make this third party application will make a request to the authorization server on behalf of the user, and then it will return the access token. The same access token is sent to the resource server to fetch the protected resource information. Since you're sharing the complete username and password with a third party application, this is not secure. Second thing is, this third party application will get the complete access. That's why people generally doesn't implement this particular workflow. And the final one is the implicit grant flow. This is the mini version of the authorization code grant. The difference is, in authorization code grant, first you will get authorization code grant, and after that you will get a token. Here, since it is an implicit grant flow, that authorization code grant step will be skipped. So the third party application will make a request to the authorization server, and once authentication is done, it will return an access token to the third party application. And the third party application will use this token and invoke this relevant resource service. The resource service will authenticate the token and sends the response back to the client. That's it for this video. Did you find this video helpful? If yes, please consider liking it. And finally, don't forget to share and subscribe. See you in the next video. Till then, happy learning.